Happy spring equinox to everybody. I thought this would be a perfect time to take a walk in the forest and make a video to share with you in case you've been cooped up in your house for too long. You can take a virtual walk with me through the redwoods. So everybody get your imaginary wellies on. I have mine on. It's been rainy lately, so it might be a little bit of mud. So starting off right here in my backyard, got a beautiful collection of these western coltsfoot that's in bloom right now. Part of the umbelliferae family. Can you tell why they're called umbelliferae? And then there's another beautiful flowering plant right now, a tall shrub. This is the red flowering currant, and here's the blooms. These have been blooming, this plant's been blooming for just on 2 or 3 weeks now. So I got plenty of Douglas iris plants with a lot of new growth coming up. They'll be blooming well into the spring. Won't see them for a bit. I think you'll be able to hear some birds. Oh, there's my wildlife camera. But I think you'll be able to hear some birds as we walk along. So although this isn't an old growth forest, now maybe you can hear that bird off in the distance. Listen again. There. That's Pacific wren. May be able to see one, but so this forest is second or third growth, and as a matter of fact, my neighbor did a harvest in this area we're going to be going through a couple of years ago. You can see maybe that this is a wildlife trail in through here. I've got foxes that come to visit quite frequently. A little bit of brush. Foxes don't need to have that much space. Right. So this was the skid trail that was used during my neighbor's harvest. And you can see that the plants have grown up quite quickly. Here's oh wow, okay, good. I was hoping there would be some of these flowers. The trillium here in my backyard have just started to bloom. This is western trillium. They've been blooming for a couple of weeks in other locations, but I'm fortunate enough that they're starting to bloom in my location here. So there's a couple of different ferns to talk about. This is western sword fern, and then this one down here is deer fern. You can see last year's fertile fronds. They have the spores. The other fronds don't. So we've got battling Pacific wrens and that very annoying backup signal that is someplace down the hill from me. Here's another western trillium bloom. So these trees, nice bit of sunlight, morning sunlight coming through. These trees are rather small when compared to mature trees, small in both diameter and height, because the largest tree is up in Redwood National State Parks. Its name is Hyperion, and when it was measured, was 380 feet tall. Might be taller now, might be shorter, because the tops of these trees can come off, be blown off. So lots of brambles right here. This is a nice example of the native California blackberry. We've also in the area have an exotic invasive species of blackberry called Himalayan vine, Himalayan blackberry, although I don't see any here right now. The Himalayan berry was intentionally introduced, brought over from Armenia for cultivation, but it escaped, and so now it's invaded a lot of this area. One nice thing is that the Himalayan blackberry is much more delicious and larger than the smaller California blackberry. Oh, more about size of these trees. The redwood, coastal redwood with the largest diameter, its name is Gorgon Fault. It too is up in the Redwood National State Park, and its diameter is 27 feet. Most mature redwoods can get to 300 feet easily. For comparison, think of the Statue of Liberty, just the statue, not the pedestal, and it's only 150 feet tall. Hoping to see a banana slug, but haven't yet. Just looking around at, oh, that bird right there. That's a little brown creeper. Let's listen again. Now that's dark-eyed junco, that trill. I don't hear the creeper again. But lots of lovely light coming through the forest this morning. In addition to redwood trees, the redwood forest also has tons of Douglas fir, which is this tree right here. See if I can find a Doug fir cone for you. Really easy to identify by their cones. Don't see one right off. More of that dark-eyed junco singing up ahead of us. A little bit muddy. We're getting into an open sunny space, so that means western coltsfoot habitat again. Pretty boggy right here. There was creeper. That gee. Trees sang. There's also western hemlock trees. This is one here. I don't see any of the red alder just now. They're a deciduous broadleaf. All the rest of these trees are coniferous needles. Ah, look at this. This is cool. So even though it's difficult for us humans to see wildlife in person sometimes because we're too noisy and smelly, we can find sign of it. This is a bear tree, and you can see where the bear has removed the bark, and these grooves, these marks right here, it's not their claws that make that mark, it's their teeth. They like to gnaw on the inner bark like this for the sweet sap. So this is a fun sign of the presence of black bears. We don't have grizzly bears in California anymore. They were driven to extinction at the very beginning of the 20th century, back in the 1910s, I think it was. The last one was killed. So, irony of ironies, the state animal is the grizzly bear, and that's the animal that's on our flag. But we killed them all. But we do have the black bears around. In this climate, they don't hibernate, doesn't get cold enough for them. So they are active year-round. So this is a little bit of an example of one of the two ways that redwood trees make new redwood trees. You can see here the remnants of a stump, and then these two sprouts, large sprouts now coming off. So these two trees are most likely clones of the original parent tree. Identical genetically, because they're sprouts. And 85% of redwood reproduction is done with sprouts vegetatively. So 15% is done with seeds. And again, I'm looking for a cone, seed cone from the redwood. I don't see one right off. Keep an eye out for it though. So the tree, the redwood trees have individual branches which are either male or female cone bearing. So each branch is either has female cones or male cones. And the pollen is blown by the wind in November and December and January. And so the female cones are fertilized by the wind. Trees can fertilize themselves, but the seeds need to fall and root on bare mineral soil. And as you can see, there's hardly any of that around. It's mostly all forest duff, needles, other branches, a lot of vegetation. So that's why only 15% of the new, oh, yay, found another flower. This is a delicate little thing. See if I can get in very close to it. This is a there we go. Okay, there we go. This is a redwood violet. They've been blooming for a little bit longer than the trillium have. And now we've got the Coast Guard helicopter coming close by. Assume you can hear it. There it is. We have Coast Guard Air Base, Sector Humboldt. There it is. Up north of where I live in McKinleyville. And then there's also a lifeboat station over on the North Spit as well. So we have both air and sea support. Our harbor is a working harbor. We're crabbing right now. So a lot of these are Douglas iris, and they'll be blooming towards the end of April. They're called Douglas iris. They're named after a very important botanist, Scottish botanist, David Douglas. Came over here, sent over by the London Botanical Society, and spent quite a bit of time in the Columbia Gorge soon after Lewis and Clark expedition. So this flower, the Douglas iris, is named after him, as well as the Douglas fir tree. There's probably a couple dozen plants and animals named after him. There's here in the forest, there's a mammal called, it's a squirrel, called Douglas squirrel. Very abundant, very annoying. Oop. I see an invasive plant has found purchase here. This is English holly. Which can really take over. I'll have to come back with a lopper. Get rid of that. Oh, here's another invasive plant. This is pampas grass. The pampas grass generally will survive in only very sunny locations, so eventually as the forest grows up and shades it out, it will die, but not soon enough to my liking. There's another native. Oh, here's a nice sunlit western sword fern. And then this is a wonderful native plant here as well. This is called Salal, S-A-L-A-L. It has beautiful little white, looks like lanterns, like fairy lanterns for blooms, but they have the most delicious they have the most delicious berries in the fall. Okay. So here's another fern. This is a good example of a wood fern. So if you can see the shape in general, it's triangular. The bottom of the frond is flat. If I can find a lady fern, I'll show you what those look like. Very similar, except the frond is not flat, it tapers. Another beautiful western trillium. If I can keep my footing. Continuing on up. Oh, so this stump here has a good crop of two of the huckleberries that we have in the forest. One is red huckleberry, which is this plant. It's deciduous, so it's just now leafing out. And then this one here, this one is black huckleberry. And this is very typical of the huckleberries finding a place to grow out of stumps. There's the Pacific wren. That's the male doing a territorial song for breeding seasons. Oh, look at this. We also got five-finger fern here as well. So this, switch the camera. Oh, there. So this is, it has more than 5 fingers, obviously, but very delicate. I think it was one of my favorite ferns. Very easy to identify because of the strong black center stem on the fronds. Five-finger fern. The First Nations peoples here used this black main stem in their basket making. Oh, here's another invasive. This is Scotch broom. Don't like that. So these humps, these that you see here, are just water bars that when they finished harvesting the trees, they came in and installed these water bars with a trench on this side and then the hump to keep water from just running straight down the skid road and causing a lot of erosion. Almost to the top of this little skid road. Another water bar. Here's another red flowering currant without any flowers yet, but may bloom. And here we are at the top. It's my neighbor's house over there. And this is my road I live on. So, I hope I was able to entertain you this and give you some interesting information perhaps. Thanks for listening to me babble on and struggle up the hill on this first day of spring. Cheers and gone.